Chapter 23. Many. The smell of burned flesh and vaporized blood had seeped into the fog and spread across the entire city square. The air felt heavy and still, carried the weight of a massacre that had taken place not too long ago. Severed limbs were flung around at random, like spare parts of puppets on the floor of a toymaker's workshop. Entrails and guts were smeared across the glistening cobblestones like strawberry marmalade on thick slices of bread. The heat from Jada's auric techniques had cleared the fog just about enough for Cato and his team to see the result of a grimy bloodbath. But even without having witnessed the morbid spectacle, the residual energy of an intense confrontation was still palpable. It was a feeling similar to walking through an empty hall where a great feast had taken place only hours ago. Similar, but not quite the same, of course.
"Master!"
Rain yelled, having no regard for any danger whatsoever. She only had a mind to run toward Jada's groans somewhere inside the shrouded plaza, but was firmly held by the wrist.
"Let go of me, Raven!"
She hissed and turned around, only to find out it wasn't her brother holding her back. "Shh," Cato whispered and put a finger to his lips.
Patience, Sunshine. We can't rush in without understanding what we're dealing with. For all we know, Jada is being used as bait.
Even though the square wasn't as heavily obscured as the rest of the city, it was still hidden in the dark of the night. The sickled moon and tiny gems in the sky could only provide them with so much light. Suddenly, they were approached by a heavy set of footsteps, and Cato immediately let go of Rain's wrist to grasp for his hilt. He almost let his sword sing its deadly song, but was able to recognize the incoming silhouette just in time.
Peyton,
he asked in bewilderment upon seeing the blood-soaked weapons expert.
What happened here?
No time to explain, Captain.
Peyton rushed past Cato and reached for Koba's arm.
You have to come with me, Cobes,
he said and pulled the healer away.
Jade needs your help.
They all followed Peyton to the center of the square where Jada lay sprawling on her back next to a huge fountain. Cato gawked at the marble tree with a braided trunk, somehow having erased its existence from his memory. It reminded him of a dream he once had about the Everlong twins, the very first one, in fact. In that dream, he himself was an enormous tree that reached to the clouds, and for some reason, the twins were gnawing at his bark as if he were made of chocolate. Of course, he thought nothing of it when he woke up. It was just one of those silly dreams that anyone must be getting every now and again. If only he knew then that it would only be the first of many dreams involving the twins, he would have given more effort memorizing it. None of it mattered now. He quickly shook off his reverie and turned his attention back to Jada. She was barely conscious and completely drenched in red. Her neck was torn open from a nasty-looking wound, as if shredded by the teeth of a fierce predator. Koba pressed his hand on the wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding, but the red fluid kept seeping through the cracks of his fingers.
"Captain,"
Maya said and lowered her voice.
"we are very vulnerable out here in the open."
Cato nodded, but kept his eyes fixed on his fallen subordinate.
Koba, what is your assessment?
The healer didn't turn his head, but his body language already told everyone that the situation was dire.
"It's bad, my lord. Jada is losing a lot of blood. I can't start treatment before the wound is cauterized, but if I do that, I may not have enough aura to stabilize her condition."
Cato drew a deep breath and took a look around the square.
Cameron, secure the perimeter to our north and make sure Koba can undertake the procedure undisturbed.
Cameron answered with a stiff bow and drew the massive two-hander from his back before heading off to the far side of the square.
Lady Maya, please take Rain with you and guard our backside. Let's make sure we haven't been followed.
Maya gave him a nod and took Rain by the hand, but the blonde refused to leave her master's side.
"Rain,"
Cato said and sighed.
You promised me you would listen to my commands.
"I am."
Rain countered defiantly.
"You told me to stay close to either you, Raven, or Jada at all times."
"It's all right, Cap. I got this,"
Maya said and put her hand on Rain's back.
"Please allow Blondie to give her master her support. They both need it."
Cato sighed again. His entire point was to draw Rain away from them so that she wouldn't have to see her master suffer. What he intended to order wasn't going to be pretty, but he didn't have time to argue, so he relented with a quick smile and a nod. Rain thanked Maya with a look that said more than 1,000 words and knelt down next to her master. She held Jada by the hand and instantly started sobbing when she felt a faint squeeze back.
Everything is going to be all right, Master. We will make sure of it.
Jada moved her lips to say something, but her words carried no sound. She kept her greyish-green eyes on the night sky without ever blinking.
Please do not talk, Jada. You will only aggravate your wound.
Koba said, still pressing tightly onto her neck. Jada ignored the request. She didn't even seem to hear Koba's voice. Her lips repeated the same sequence of motions, but the words kept leaving her mouth soundless.
The tree is reborn,
Kato mumbled while reading her lips. He frowned and raised his eyes to the fountain. He didn't understand what Jada meant, but the words gave him a premonition that something terrible was about to happen somehow.
Raven,
He suddenly said, and turned to his pupil.
sear her neck.
Peyton launched himself from his kneeling position and grabbed Kato by the collar.
What the fuck are you saying, huh?
He looked ready to let his fist fly, but was held back by Raven.
Kay is right. We have no choice.
Or time.
Koba added.
If we don't act now, Jada will bleed out.
We all want to save Jada.
Kato said, without making an effort to release himself from Peyton's grip. As much as he disliked Peyton, he did understand the weapons expert's strong feelings for his longtime comrade.
Please.
Peyton stared back in defeat and slowly released his grip. He turned to his teammates with a bewildered look and slumped to the ground next to Jada. He received a supportive rub on the shoulder from Rain, but at that point, everything went by unnoticed. He only had eyes and mind for his fallen partner.
How do you want to proceed?
Raven asked, and hunkered down next to the bald healer.
Just tell me when you're ready. I will retract my hands and focus on helping her through the pain. Once you are done with your part, I will start the healing procedure.
Raven turned to his mentor for confirmation and was answered with a sullen nod. He returned his eyes to Jada. To see someone he admired being reduced to such a fragile state deeply unsettled him. Surely if it happened to her, it could happen to anyone else. He took a deep breath and cleared his mind before doubt would show its ugly face. Then he held out his hand and started gathering aura inside his palm. In an instant his hand was wrapped in a glove of brightness that was neither fire nor lightning, but it was just as magical and just as powerful.
Ready,
he said, and pressed onto Jada's neck as soon as Koba retracted his hands. He winced from the sizzling sound of Jada's skin being scorched to a crisp, but kept pressing tightly until he was sure the wound had been completely sealed. Koba reached for her abdomen and started pouring his energy into her to alleviate the stress on her body. He noticed in an instant that she had broken 3 of her ribs, and that she suffered from a punctured lung.
Talk to me, Koba. How does it look?
Not good, my lord. Weak pulse, multiple fractures, internal bleeding. She even seemed to have taken damage from her own aura, most likely due to overexertion.
My God, Peyton. What happened here?
Kato asked, but received no answer. A quick glance at Peyton was enough to tell him that the weapons expert had sunk to a completely different plane of existence. He turned back to the healer.
How much time do you need, Koba?
The wounds are severe, my lord. The best I can do for Jada right now is to put her in a deep sleep and make sure her vitals don't drop any further. We need to get her back to Onira for a full treatment, but I'm afraid she will not survive the trip in her current condition.
So how much time do you need?
Koba raised his head and gave the captain a worrisome look.
Definitely more than an hour.
For fuck's sake.
Kato mouthed and took a look at his surroundings. It seemed empty enough.
Do it.
There will be no turning back once I start the treatment, my lord.
Do it.
Kato repeated.
We will cover you.
Yes, my lord.
Koba said, and started moving his hands from Jada's abdomen to her head. Immediately, Jada stopped moving her lips and closed her eyes. Kato hunkered down and started snapping his fingers in front of Peyton's face, whipping the weapons expert back to reality.
We need to know what we're dealing with, Peyton. Tell me what happened here.
Peyton slowly turned his head to Kato with eyes that had been to hell and back. He then stared at Jada and gnashed his teeth in heartbreak.
They came out of nowhere.
He began in a voice that was about to shatter.
At first, there ain't none round, you know. We thought we were safe. Then without any warning, Fucking Vadim Shamaralok fucking jumped us in the smithy. Jade offed him. You should have seen her. My girl was spectacular. Made his whole fucking skull explode in a red mist. But before we knew what the fuck was going on, more of them monsters came out of the fog like rabid beasts.
He paused and just stared at nothing for a while, reliving the moment his life got turned into a nightmare.
Captain, they ain't normal.
What do you mean?
Cato asked and raised his head when he thought to hear something coming from the north.
I don't feel no pain, I'm telling you. Walk right through my blade like it ain't nothing at all.
Wait!
Raven said in shock.
Were they also docile at one point? Absent-minded, I mean, like empty husks?
Peyton turned to Raven with a frown.
Yeah, now that you mention it.
He flicked his head to the corpse of a headless giant a few yards down the square.
Vadim, the legendary fucking blacksmith. He was just idling, doing fuck all in his shop before he decided to try his luck against Pete and Jade.
He shifted his eyes to his fallen partner and almost cracked into tears.
Jade and Pete.
He quietly corrected himself.
Kay, it's the same as that long-haired baldy we found,
Raven said and gasped when he finally got the opportunity to take a look around.
They all wear dragon skin armor.
Cato acknowledged his pupil with a nod. He had already seen the Merylesian outfits when they first entered the city square.
What triggered him to attack?
He asked and got back to his feet. He kept his eyes fixed on the north where Cameron was standing guard.
Keep talking,
he said, but slowly began to reach for the sword on his belt. Raven noticed the unease in his mentor's demeanour and immediately climbed to his feet as well. He too cast his eyes to the north, but didn't sense anything more unusual than it already was. Still, he knew better than to question Cato's instinct.
What triggered him, Peyton?
Cato asked again with more urgency.
The motherfuckers all zoned in on Jade,
Peyton continued, ignoring Cato's question.
'Twas as if I ain't even there, you know? Ne'er seen nothing like it. I hacked off this guy's fucking arm, and he ain't even flinch. I hacked off his fucking leg, and he just kept on hopping toward Jade.
Cato carefully unsheathed his sword and motioned his pupil to do the same. They gave each other a nod and started to move away from Koba and Jada.
Wait, what's going on? Where are you going?
Rain asked, fumbling for her sword as well upon seeing the tension on their faces. All of the sudden, the piercing sound of a massive two-hander colliding with cobblestones reverberated across the square. Immediately, a couple of footsteps were coming their way at a frantic pace, followed by the slow clobbering from the boots of a mountainous man. Two shadows jumped out of the fog and ran straight for the group near the fountain. Cato pointed to his side, gesturing for Raven to protect Koba and Jada. He took a few steps forward to create some distance between himself and his team. He slowly lowered his body in preparation of a strike.
Remember your lessons, Cato of Moonshield?
He whispered to himself under his breath.
Timing and accuracy. Those are the only two elements of a sword fight that truly matter. Forget about strength, speed, or skill. Observe your opponent, analyze their movement, and choose your moment wisely.
Two figures wearing the garments of the Merylesian Royal Guard came closer and closer, but Cato remained unmoved and calmly assessed the situation. They were running in a straight line without even holding a weapon in hand. There was no strategy in their approach, and that caught Cato by surprise. He let them come close enough to get a clear view of his foes. Their eyes were bloodshot, completely drowning in rage. White foam left the corners of their mouths and clung to their cheeks like a beard in the wind. He hesitated to let his sword sing when he noticed that it was exactly as Peyton already said. He was completely invisible to them. They only had eyes for Jada. He nimbly spun around just as they were running past him and let the steel of his blade bathe in the blood of the frenzied Merylesians. In a single motion, he sliced through their Achilles tendons. The Merylesians fell face first to the cobbles. Teeth scattered and rattled across the floor like the dice of a game Cato loved to play in a distant past that seemed like a few lifetimes ago. One of the Merylesians was removed from his consciousness in an instant. The other remained committed to the charge and started crawling on her elbows toward Jada with frightening tenacity. Raven quickly reacted to the threat by raising his sword and bringing it back down in a flash, but the strike was deflected with a shrill clang.
Wait!
Cato ordered and knelt down on the spine of the Merylesian with force, pinning her to the spot. She kept struggling in a growing puddle of blood, trying to break herself free and clawing the cobblestones in a failing attempt to pull herself forward.
She isn't going for Jada,
Cato murmured as he followed the direction of her bloodshot eyes. He flinched and bounced to his feet when two throwing knives flew into the skulls of the grounded Merylesians.
They ain't feel no pain, but stick a blade in their brains and they fade all the same.
Cato glared at Peyton with his sword still in hand.
You do that again and I'll end you the next time. We could have learned something from her.
Yeah, look at 'em, Captain. They ain't nothing but mindless monsters. What do you hope to learn from 'em, huh? They be better off dead if you ask me.
And that is why you are not paid to think, Pate.
What?
Peyton gave his partner, who had been unconscious since Koba started his treatment, a quick glance and turned back to the captain with an ill-tempered expression on his face. Cato ignored the scowl and flipped the Merylesian on her back. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, just like Rain. A multitude of bite and scratch marks left her neck and shoulders mangled. He glanced at Jada, then Rain, then back at the Merylesian. Cameron finally returned to them and immediately started flicking his hands in an urgent series of gestures. His greatsword was painted red from tip to hilt.
Were they all wearing Merylesian armor as well?
Raven asked and was answered with a stiff nod.
Kay, what is the meaning of this? They're not supposed to be here. Over 24 of dragons have died at our hands already. We have been betrayed!
It doesn't add up.
Cato answered pensively.
They aren't targeting us specifically.
What do you mean?
They only seem to be after the ones who are manipulating aura. I think they possess seeking abilities.
How is that even possible?
Rain asked in shock.
Aren't there only a few dozen known seekers in all of Aden?
You are right. It really shouldn't be possible.
He unclasped his cloak and wrapped it around the shoulders of Koba, who was shivering and kneeling on the ice-cold cobbles like a statue, deeply in focus and completely oblivious to his surroundings.
Think about it, though.
Cato continued.
They were all focused on Jada, and we know for a fact that she used her aura to send us the signal. And just now, these two here ran right past me and were heading straight for Koba. Tell me, what happened before that long-haired bald guy showed up near the stables?
Well,
She began, but was cut short by distant sounds of conflict. They all turned their attention to the direction where Maya was standing guard. A symphony of clashing metals was performed for them behind the cover of a white curtain. All of a sudden, the Bloodthorn prodigy appeared in their midst with a longbow in her hand.
Trouble incoming.
She said without turning around to face them. Her clothes were drenched in blood, even though she wasn't carrying any other weapons on her body.
How many?
Cato asked, cleaning his sword on the sleeve of his shirt.
Many.
She answered, and produced an arrow out of thin air. She drew her bow and waited for the targets to reveal themselves. After a bone-chilling moment of silence, 5 figures burst through the wall of fog like asteroids puncturing the atmosphere. All of them in Merylesian outfits and all of them running toward Maya with nothing but madness in their eyes. She released the bowstring and gave flight to the arrow. Before the shot even landed, she plucked another arrow from an unseen source right next to her and sent it off with an accuracy that was just as deadly as her first shot. 2 silhouettes fell to the ground with the arrows jammed between their eyes. She threw her bow to the side as the 3 remaining figures were getting too close for the weapon to be used effectively. The bow vanished before it hit the ground. She spread her arms and dug them into a well of nothingness. For less than a second, the parts below her elbows seemed to disappear, but she reeled them back in, suddenly holding a curved sword in each hand. Without any effort, she spun past the first of the charging Merylesians. Within the very same motion, she darted between the last 2 foes and landed on one knee behind them. The 3 Merylesians crumpled to dissected heaps of flesh almost simultaneously. In only a few measly seconds, and executed within just as many moves, all 5 silhouettes lay motionless on the ground. Kato gawked in astonishment at the beautiful display of violence that was performed to perfection, all the while thinking that no one had the right to look this gracious doing something so horrible. Maya turned around and gave him a smile as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened just now. Kato could only react with a dumbfounded expression on his face, but that quickly changed to a grimace of horror when he saw that 2 of the fallen Merylesians were still alive and hell-bent on sinking their teeth into an unsuspecting Maya. Both of the surviving Merylesians were missing some limbs, but that didn't stop them from lunging at her legs, snapping their jaws like crocodiles hunting on a riverbank. Kato didn't waste any time thinking about the consequences and threw himself at Maya. He bumped her to the side while plunging his sword straight through the mouth of one attacker. He didn't manage to stop the other one, however. Raven immediately came to the aid of his mentor and severed the attacker's head from his body with a powerful slash.
Oh no,
he said, horrified by the sight. Kato looked down at his wrist.
The long-haired baldy.
He said with an uneasy chuckle.
Now I understand what you meant.
The bodiless head of a man who was bald at the crown and had long golden hair at the back was still clinging onto Kato's forearm with his teeth. His eyes were glassy and glintless, no longer showing any signs of life. Kato watched his own blood trickle to the ground through the mouth of the severed head. He glanced at the seared neck of Jada. He glanced at the mangled neck and shoulders of the Merylesian woman who was after Koba. He shifted his eyes back to his own arm.
Why do they use their teeth?
He thought out loud.
Shut up and hold out your arm,
Raven said.
Cam, help me out, will you?
Do you reckon they spread whatever has made them behave this way through bites?
Like a virus, you mean?
Rain asked quietly.
Kay, shut the fuck up already! You're unsettling everyone!
Raven took his mentor by the hand and turned to Cameron.
Ready?
He asked, and was answered with a nod. Cameron cracked open the jaws of the severed head like a clam and flung the dislodged fragments as far away as he could. He started flicking his hands in a series of gestures and finished off with a shove against Kato's chest.
Relax, Cam, I'm fine. It's barely a scratch.
Kato casually tore off one of his sleeves and wound it around his forearm, tying the fabric in a knot with his teeth.
Still, it was careless,
Raven said, also giving his mentor a shove.
And I couldn't care less,
Kato rebuked.
No one else will get hurt here tonight.
He got down on one knee in front of Maya, who had been staring at him in disbelief for the past minute or so.
Are you all right, my lady?
Captain.
She only managed to reply. Her eyes were fixed on the piece of cloth around his arm that was already soaking wet.
Why?
I don't know,
he said.
Something about a confluence of rivers and some other metaphorical blah blah.
He gave her a wink and helped her back to her feet.
Kay, heads up,
Raven said, clutching tightly to his sword. All of the sudden, the entire city seemed to be trembling. A chaotic cacophony erupted from the direction where Maya stood guard. It sounded as if a herd of elephants were stampeding toward them.
There must be hundreds of them!
Rain exclaimed in a rush of panic.
Stay with us, Sunshine. Your master needs you to be strong now,
Kato said and turned to the pathetic heap of mess next to Rain.
The same goes for you, Peyton. We need to protect Jada.
Peyton didn't respond with any words, but slouched over to the 2 Merylesians he had killed earlier to retrieve his throwing knives. He then showed the captain the face of someone who was willing to set the whole world ablaze to protect his comrade.
We can't fight them off here,
Raven said.
This place is open from all sides. We'll be surrounded in seconds.
We have no choice,
Kato answered coldly.
We cannot move Koba and Jada. If their link ends prematurely, they could both die.
He glanced at each and every one of his subordinates with eyes that were engulfed in the flames of determination.
This is where we make our stand.
We are with you, Cap.
Maya said, and picked up her 2 curved swords from the ground. Raven scoffed.
Tell me you have a plan at least, Kay.
Of course.
Kato turned to Koba and Jada, who both remained statuesque on the cold cobblestones.
Raven, Maya, and I will distract the enemy and take the fight elsewhere on the square. If I am correct in my assessment that they will only go after the ones who are manipulating aura, we might be able to keep them away from this place. Cameron, Peyton, and Rain, you 3 stay here and protect Koba and Jada at all costs. If anyone breaks through, you take them out without any hesitation. We don't know what else they are capable of, and I don't intend to find out either. Stick together, watch each other's backs, and aim for their heads.
Rain quietly rose to her feet. Everyone expected her to protest the order, but she walked over to Cato, Raven, and Maya to give them a hug.
Please stay safe.
She said to all three and returned to Cameron and Peyton.
I'm proud of you, Sunshine.
Cato gave her a smile and turned to Raven and Maya.
Are you ready?
Ready.
They answered in unison and followed him to face the incoming horde.